Welcome down to Tech Talk Friday. My God, I come back after a week and my tongue goes all over the place. So welcome back to Tech Talk Friday, everybody. Thank you for spending your time with us this Friday. Hopefully you are, because I know the state just opened up if you are in the Klang Valley. So all must be really gearing to kind of move around, but sit there for a while, enjoy the show for the next 45 minutes or so that we can bring you the tech news in Malaysia and perhaps maybe a bit more than that in this next 45 minutes. So if you're joining us, I want to let you know the Tech Talk Friday is brought to you by Necole, the learning experience platform. So if you want to accelerate your career, future growth, and also your development, go on to Necole.app and get your Necole subscription, whether it's 3 months or a year. And of course, you see down at the scroll below, there's a promo code, Roshan T Lead 30. Use that promo code to get 30% discount right here, right now for your Necole subscription. We've got a packed show today. We do. And some information or some things are going to happen next week as well. But let's focus on the here and now. And I, of course, have to now introduce someone who was saying some things about me last week of not being around and no more equal host la, this la, that la. I just want to say, this man that I'm going to introduce, too much of him is not a good thing. In small doses, like today, 45 minutes, all okay, very good, very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, the other host of Tech Talk Friday, let's bring on Karamjit Singh from Digital News Asia. And then look at the fella, acting. Karam, hello.
Yes.
Come back to reality.
I was just trying to level my heartbeat because we have a pulmonary expert on the show also. So I thought I got to make sure my heartbeat is regularized. Because always I get too excited on the show. So today it'll be the calm and measured and stable, and mature Karamjit Singh.
Okay, so for those of y'all who just heard that and you're watching us from either LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, here's a question to you. Can Karam stay calm during this whole show today? Leave your comments and say yes, yay, or nay. All right, so Karam, let's start this off. Digital News Asia pick of the week, and this one is about TPM, Technology Park Malaysia, recalibrates to fuel economics of innovation. Some initiatives to strengthen the ecosystem to ensure security of innovation supply. And TPM is at that opportune intersection between science, tech, innovation, and parks. So what's this story about?
Well, that last point you made was actually a quote from the CEO of TPM, Zulera Abu Bakar. And the word parks, is does not sync, right? Does not yin and yang with science, technology, innovation. But parks is because TPM has got is actually a technology park, 600 acres. So the physicality of TPM is an important part of its value proposition. So hence you got to add in the word park in there. But really, so this is, when you talk about economics of innovation, because they have a new minister, I just checked before the show, so the new minister is still the current minister because things change so dynamically in the political landscape of Malaysia. And I say this not in jest, but with a deep undertone of frustration. But never mind, right? We leave the Sheraton move out of the show because I feel my heartbeat going up again. Okay,
calm. Don't lose it too fast.
Okay, I'm calm now. Anyway,
only 5 minutes in.
Oh man. Okay. Anyway, so we are. So the new minister is in, and he is now emphasizing the economics of innovation. Okay. So of course, some people will say that just means the commercialization of aspect of innovation. Fine. So TPM now has recalibrated its services, and they have publicly announced what those 5 areas are, and they will flesh those out further by the end of the year. And those 5 are. They're going to offer improved integrated infrastructure services, right? Infrastructure, because they've got a lot of physical assets in TPM. They got biotech lab, they've got engineering, some advanced engineering machines, right? That people can go and use. And then they're going to introduce a sandbox side also, which is very interesting. I think Malaysia has found that introducing this sandbox concept is quite valuable. So the sandbox really is a safe space for you to come and experiment with a innovation or a business model, some new business model that you have, with the various relevant parties also engaging with you in there. So you're not doing it on your own, and so that's you proving to be very useful. So even now, TPM is now going to introduce its own sandbox, and then they were also going to introduce an experimental lab. They already have some labs there, so I'm guessing that this experimental lab will be a lab where you can come and safely blow things up, because we want to be. And because the minister talks about us wanting to be able to export our technology and innovation. So, if you want to be there, we got to be a bit more bolder and take more risks. And I'm assuming that this lab will be an, explosion-friendly zone. Just don't invite me for anyone's experiment, because, I would like to keep my beard in the shape it is and not do a Michael Jackson, run out of there with my hair, on fire, or my turban on fire, right? So anyway, that's one. And also then a commercialization center, of course, and programs to build stronger pipeline of innovation. These programs to build stronger pipeline is interesting because it's called capacity building. And I know that they're already engaging with, one of the leading, accelerator or, capacity building outfits in Malaysia to collaborate with them to do this. I won't mention the name because they could surprise us and actually be partnering with someone else, but I don't know how to pronounce this word now. No, sorry?
Suffice to say.
Okay. That to say that we will have, a lot of strong capacity building programs for entrepreneurs out there. And maybe even, actually, Dr. Sean who's going to come on is already a seasoned entrepreneur. So maybe somebody who's trying to do something innovative like him could find value in these capacity building programs. I don't know, but these are the 5 areas. And the key thing is really aim at accelerating the innovation, economic recovery for the country and our innovation capacity also. And I'll just end with this, that some quick data points, right? KPMG did a study, a global study of cities around the world in terms of how attractive they are as innovation hubs. And KL was ranked as, I think 9th, right? It was ranked as 9th among Asian cities, not globally, just among Asian cities. And of course, if you bring it down to Southeast Asia, you can say it's ranked probably number 2. And if you want to be cheeky and say Southeast Asia x Singapore, right? Because you hear about Asia x Japan, right? So why can't we do Southeast Asia x Singapore? Then we are number 1. So just teaching you a bit of positioning there, right? Anyway, also now on a global level, we are ranked 33 in the Global Innovation Index. This is an established, respected innovation index that has been done for at least about 7-8 years. We are now ranked 33 out of 131 economies, okay? So, I know there's a tendency among Malaysians to be very critical, say, country sucks, no, we are here, we are lousy. We're going to be competing with Afghanistan and Yemen soon in terms of competitiveness. No. We are actually 33, and I know if we get our act together and invest a bit more, and if this initiative by TPM works, we're probably going to move up the rankings much more. And it's important because then it means that our innovation pipeline is strong and fluid, and we're going to have a lot more interesting entrepreneurs coming out. With that now, I think maybe it's time, right, Nigesh?
Yep. So if you, speaking of which, we may have some Singaporeans in the audience, Karam. They may be avid followers of Tech Talk. Please, no ex-Singapore. We all satu ASEAN.
No, so if you want to read positioning, because Singapore stole our mihun, right? They say Singapore mihun. I'm still upset about it. Okay.
Singapore stole our mihun. We stole the nasi lemak. All this story will keep on going on. So if you want to read this story, go on to Digital News Asia. The link is in the comments area wherever you're watching us. And if you could bring it up, there you go. You will see the links in the comments area. Go check out the story that Karam mentioned. And speaking about 5. We're going to bring up our first guest, and probably will take a little bit longer with this guest because there's some things we really want to cover with him. He actually wrote a piece on Digital News Asia very recently, and this is actually what we really want to focus on because it's a very interesting piece. But as you hear this man as he speaks, keep in mind he's talking about technology. He's talking about socio-economic revitalization of economy and digital economy on top of that, and digital policies. But he is an actual doctor, an actual medical practicing doctor. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring SERI's Dr. Helmy Haja Mydin, CEO of Social and Economic Research Initiative, SERI. Hi, Dr. Helmy.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Good to have you.
I'm learning a lot about how to lower the heart rate and positioning, right? That's the thing to do. So as a new think tank, I think positioning is very important. So I'm taking notes.
Alright,
Don't
good,
take
good, good.
don't take Karam's advice, please. No.
No.
All right, Karam, go. Take it away.
Okay, so Dr. Sri, maybe you can actually share with us why you set up a SERI, and what is the impact you hope for SERI to have, and of course give us your background. Obviously now we know you're a medical doctor, but just share with us quickly about that.
So I'm a respiratory physician, so I'm a lung expert. So things like COVID, lung cancer, asthma, things like that. But as a doctor, I think at some point you realize that a lot of what you're trying to do for your patients is very much a consequence of systemic issues. So socio-economic policies, really, more than anything else. And that's what led me and some of my friends to think that we need to do a little bit more at a more national level when it comes to policies. And one of our areas of interest were the issues of inequality. And once again, if we dive further into it, if we look at how things have been over the past couple of years with the pandemic, it's not only been just about the issue of health, but actually when it comes to the digital side of things, there's an increasing inequality. And initially we went into the pandemic thinking that, with tech, we can actually bridge divides. We can make people be more active participants. But what we're finding instead is actually it's increasing that divide between the have-nots. And that's kind of what made us think that, we need to maybe make a little bit more noise about these issues, because it's one thing to talk about like, fourth industrial revolution, AI and whatnot, but for the people on the ground, it's something that's very apas. So we need to kind of bridge that gap. And by hopefully making some noise about it, talking about it, making it a little bit more palatable to everyone, then, people can appreciate what it is. And it goes back to, once again, I'm not a tech guy, I'm a doctor. But it's about understanding why these things matter and how it actually will help shape society as we move forward.
Wonderful. Wow. I really admire the fact that you have managed to act on an issue that you have seen. So people can be passionate about something. Hey, we must do something about it. But it's very hard to move into the act part, and you have done that. Although I know that, off camera, we said you're almost you're almost reaching 40 years of age, and although you look like you look like you're 28. So I guess this pain, this systematic issues, or what was you're only seeing the symptoms, but the cause of it. When did you start realizing this? Was it like when you're in your 10 years after your career, when you've already got your Ferrari and your Bugatti, in the garage, and the wife is happy with a Bulgari, handbag and stuff like that. So you say, hey, get out of this, right? This is not what life is about. I want to look at a real purpose. I don't know. I hope your wife's not listening. I'm not making fun of her. I just kind of slipped it there.
No. She'll be thinking, where on earth are my bags and where's the car? And, is that what you're supposed to be bringing back home? Yeah, so unfortunately, I haven't reached that level of my career. But I suppose it's, and I wouldn't say there was an exact point where I thought, okay, this is a life-changing moment as such. But it's just looking at the way healthcare as a whole has been, I suppose, underappreciated. So if we look at how, for example, funding, budgeting, not just in Malaysia, but across the globe, it's something we take for granted. And it's only once again during this recent pandemic where we go, oh my God, there's this decades of systemic underinvestment, blah, blah, blah. And I have that same fear for other aspects of our economy, our society.
Okay.
One of the digital side of things, it's one thing to say we need to do something. It's another thing to actually pump money in the right places. So going back to what Karamjit was saying earlier on about the park, for example. So it's, it's something that's very specific with a very focused outcome that will hopefully lead to some regeneration of our economy down the line. But that's not very common, and to go back to what Karamjit was saying earlier on, sometimes the instability that the country faces from a political standpoint, that has a horrendous effect on our ability to be strategic in our thinking, in our ability to plan for things. And these are the things that I suppose keep me up at night in a way, because I've got very selfish reasons. I want my children to grow up in a Malaysia that I'm proud of.
Totally. We are in sync with that. Absolutely. All of us do. Yep.
And I want us to be number one in ASEAN with or without Singapore. So these are the kind of things that, I feel that the conversation should be about. And, it's not just me. Everything that you have because I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to have like-minded people who are far cleverer than I am, who have the same passions and the same type of focus in pushing these things forward.
Wonderful. And by the way, everyone, the team in SERI is all doing this part-time according to Dr. Helmy. So, that's amazing. And let's go to the article and the reason why we brought you on the show, right? You wrote this article and where you're saying that the world is not going to wait for Malaysia. And when I read it, I didn't know. I thought you were full-time in this and I thought you were steeped into the digital economy, but there was a freshness in the approach, and and now I understand why, because you're not deep in the ecosystem, so you can bring a different perspective to it. Fantastic. So there are 5 points there, but and you, all of you listening, you should highly encourage you to go and read the article and embed it into your psyche that, hey, this is the issue, the challenges we're facing. So with you, Dr. Helmy, can you just go through each of the key points, right? And just share, like, what do you think is a positive there and what concerns you about that area, right, that you brought up?
Okay, I think the thinking behind it was, once again, we had a new government, or we will have, or arguably a same government with a new prime minister.
Correct.
My Karam can breathe. But I think, but it means new leadership. And with new leadership comes the potential, the opportunity for a new approach. So I think that's something that we should not take for granted. It's not something that we should be too dismissive of. And we thought, okay, what should we push forward? Once again, what should we do in order to create this conversation? And there were a few things that we thought within the, let's call it the tech space, that are quite important. And to me, personally, I think one of the key things is the fact that we are just very slow. The whole concept of the rest of the world moving forward is something that I feel strongly about. And when I do converse with friends in the industry, they feel very strongly about as well. So, for example, one of the things that we raised was the issue of clarity in regulation and appropriate stakeholder consultation. And the example we used was the cabotage issue, the decision with regards to the policy that our country is supposed to take, which was supposed to have been done, I think, after 2 weeks. But I think until today, there isn't that clarity. And while there's a bit of ding-donging between ministries, between ministers, the rest of the world moves on. Why should international players really wait when at the same time, on the one hand, we say that we want to have data centers, we want submarine cables to land in Malaysia, but on the other hand, we're not making things easy. So we are in a way sabotaging ourselves. And I think that is something that, once again, needs to be highlighted, because we have this tendency to have an issue that's highlighted for maybe a week or two, and then something else happens, and then the world moves on. But industry does not move on because they're still waiting. They are wanting to know what's going on. And when that conversation is not happening, then if I were them, I think, Malaysia lah, buat apa nak pergi Malaysia, let's go to Vietnam or Indonesia, right? So that was one key thing, the importance of regulatory clarity and the importance of appropriate stakeholder management and engagement. And then with that comes the issue of data. So once again, we talk a lot about data, but once again, there is a lot of conversations going on about where data is held, how it should be held, who holds the keys, who has access to it. And it's difficult to shift that mindset where we own data and we should be the monopolist when it comes to data. A little bit. And one very good thing I would say that has happened with the change of government is if you look at how the Ministry of Health is now a lot more open with data. So once again, you have new leadership and a new approach in terms of sharing data. And you can immediately see how it invigorates people in society. Everyone's suddenly looking into, who's been vaccinated? What's happening? Which vaccines are working? What happens if you don't get vaccinated? And that encourages and that kind of empowers people to make the right decisions. Now imagine if that approach in healthcare goes on to everything else in terms of, if you want to make Malaysia the hub for fintech, if you want to make us the hub of Islamic sukuk, for example, in a more digital way, then it all boils down to us having the right approach to data. And by that, I mean having proper open data and, in a way, cross-border data flow. And then that leads on to clarity in relation to law enforcement to data, which was point number 3. Because once again, if someone's going to store data here, if Amazon or Microsoft or anybody's going to keep data here or a data center here, then they want to make sure, they want to be given the assurance that there are certain strict laws that will be followed that will actually be acted upon only if necessary, as opposed to something that is existing, which may not necessarily cater for the digital age, because data in the analog age and data today are very different things. It's not necessarily something physical that you go in and you take. And what I see as a what I see as a core similarity between these things is actually not about the issues per se, but the underlying issue of being able to respond to things in a very agile fashion, being able to understand that things are moving fast, things are changing, that there needs to be this two-way conversation. And once upon a time, I think it was Prime Minister Najib who said, the days of government knows best are over. So I think that is the core thing here that needs to be, I think, appreciated, where there needs to be more understanding and more engagement. And then if I were to go on to the last two things, it was about, improving of infrastructure. So digital connectivity, both in terms, in using connectivity and infrastructure build-up in order to reduce the inequality that I spoke about at the very beginning. And you mentioned a little bit earlier on about the positives and the negatives of each of these things. And for connectivity, we are seeing some right moves. So for example, the 5G rollout, it's once again something that is good in concept, but as always, the devils are in the details. And there's hardware, we have people, students, schools, where unfortunately laptops that have been promised have not appeared. And at a time where we are all happily kind of having access to conversations like this, there are people who are struggling to even get their homework done, who are struggling to find out what's happening during the day. I've come across families where they are dependent on dad's smartphone to get WhatsApp messages from their teachers in order to get information about what they're studying. And you can imagine once again how that increases the divide, because you have basically a middle class that's shrinking and a lower socioeconomic class that does not have access to all this. And this whole concept of social mobility that we take for granted is going to be really, really dampened in this generation. So connectivity and infrastructure building in terms of improving access, I feel very strongly about, and that was point number 4. And last but not least, that is the issue of developing digital skills. Because once again, as we move forward and we are once again not going to be jago kampung or kata ibarat tempurung, we need to be looking at things in a more global fashion, not just ASEAN, but across the globe. And recently we were fortunate to partner with SEMO. So SEMO is the Strategic Change Management Office that's parked under the EPU under TOPA. And what they are supposed to be in charge of is they are the kind of, I don't say overlord, it's not really overlord. They are the monitors of the National Digital Economy Blueprint. So they are the ones who are looking to see how we operationalize, how we make real all these goals that we have across the board. And we were able to do a survey with them where we were looking at issues of digital skills. And there is definitely a gap in the market when it comes to things like the talent itself, the technical skills. But just as importantly, one thing that we picked up from all these companies and all the players in the industry is the lack of soft skills as well. So things like analytical thinking, critical thinking, which once again needs to be embedded within the education system. So you can see how it starts to become very holistic in terms of approaching and dealing with what we keep talking about, this digital disruption. So going back to your park, for example, to me, it makes a lot of sense to have such things, but we want the players to be Malaysian. We want our kids who are learning these things in school, who have access to education, to have access to all these things, to eventually be part and parcel of this. And it's only when they feel that they belong, it's only when they feel that this is something that is actually going to make their life better, will we be able to move forward to the digital nation. Otherwise, once again, it's conversations on webinars, it's conversations during events, but the people on the ground don't get the benefit. That, in a nutshell, is what this is all about.
True. Yeah. I mean, when you talk about people on the ground, right? The survey that you did for My Digital, let's say Fabian Biga, I looked at it and I said, man, this issue of soft skills, right? So as you can see from the color of my beard, I've been around the block. So we've been. It first came into my radar of soft skills for our graduates back in the year 2000, and incredible that 21 years later, we have not addressed it sufficiently enough, which just boggles the mind, which drives me up the wall. I mean, I could challenge Spider-Man, if you tell me all these things and, let me unleash me and I'll probably, go up the wall faster than him. So it's incredibly frustrating that we cannot get these things right. But frustration now becomes dangerous, right? Scary. As you mentioned, Department of Statistics, right, had that absolutely chilling report. It showed the X number of percentage of people in the T20, right, dropping down into the M40, And from M40 also, a substantial proportion, right, going into the B40, right? And really that was horrifying. And that tells you that we cannot, sit down and not do anything. And what we're doing, if we're not doing it well enough, we really got to be honest and say this is not hitting the mark. What do we do to get these programs, these initiatives, right, these incentives correct so that we can start helping, our fellow Malaysians? Because it's really getting to the stage where you're seeing the negative impact of it, and it's hitting people in their stomachs, right? Where, and then it's hitting people here also, where they start getting very angry or whatever, and it's bad. And those who have a choice then will start voting with their feet, right? And we're going to start losing very good talent. So we're really at a critical stage. And this is happening at a time where, Helmy, that, like you said, we don't have a stable, a 5-year runway for whoever is running the country, right? Because generally, everyone who's been running the country before, they've been doing a good job in keeping the economy going. They may be, shoveling some of it back into their own self-serving needs, fine, but things are moving along at a good stage, and there's enough civil society noise that we're trying to stop the shoveling also, right? But now what has happened the last few years is super frustrating. So I'm looking forward to the next election so we can stop the rot and have some stability, and so that when voices like yours come out, right, there's some real action that can be taken. Because right now it just feels that we are on shifting sands a bit, right? But I admire the optimism of you to saying that we change, right? There's a new prime minister now, leadership, right? At least one person has changed. Looks like everyone else is just shuffling chairs. But I love your optimism that we still want to make a change, and we can make the change, right? Super important. But also very quickly, when we talk about big plans, at least all the past few governments have been hooked on to the shared prosperity vision, right? And that's 2030. And one data point that I'll bring up, because it's linked to your talent, they're hoping that by then we have 35% of the talent pool being, a skilled talent. And Department of Statistics, again, just released some data points, very recent, to say that right now in the current talent pool, like 24.5% is skilled talent. So we are to go to 35% in 9 years, right? And I'm thinking that is not a stretch target, right? We should aim higher, because I know we've got very good talent in this country, especially the 60% that is semi-skilled. You can do a lot of intervention, targeted intervention, and it doesn't have to be only in English, right? It can be in Bahasa Malaysia also, in Mandarin, to help those people uplift themselves very fast, right? In the space of 9 years, to see that we can exceed 35%, I think. So I think the stretch target is not there, and the number of talent pool who are in the skill level also is quite low. But it's great that Department of Statistics comes up with data points, because at least we have a source of truth, right? And the truth may be uncomfortable, but that is there for us to see, and it's challenging us. Hey, what are you going to do? This is the reality on the ground.
All right. So good with that. And thanks for all the answers, Dr. Helmy. I actually wanted to call back on a few things you did. You did mention and examples of those. When you mentioned about the openness of data, I kind of was reflecting on how I felt yesterday when KJ kind of announced about COVID Now, the new website itself. So when I went over to the website, I noticed myself noticing different things on the website because of the different data points I'm seeing, versus just a splash screen of numbers in different states and overall. I'm actually looking and trying to understand what are the different components here that actually make up this very complex situation that we have with the pandemic. So you're absolutely right with that one. And I think you also hit the nail on the head when you said about bringing this, and this is what I really value about the read I had on your article per se, is if me, someone who I like to think I'm a bit more affluent, I can actually understand these things. But if we get these kind of thought processes, these 5 things that you mentioned, to the average Joe on the ground, that will help everybody towards actually moving forward. Not just a few pockets of people, but everybody moving forward. So I think you've got a real great way of looking at it. And I just want to applaud you for doing that, especially since you're actually a practicing doctor. On top of that, you're a practicing doctor who's the most needed types of doctors here, right now, during this pandemic period. So thanks for that, Dr. Helmy. And I'm going to have to move on to the next guest for now, but hold on there. We're going to have you back again later, and we'll probably have an ending question for both you and our next guest in a short bit. So thanks for giving us that explanation about those 5 very key components over there. Right. See you in a bit, Dr. Helmy. Okay, so moving on to the next person. So this was in the days where Roshan was here, and I was not the host, equal host, co-host. I don't know what Karam wants to call it anymore, but yes, he was here previously on Tech Talk. We're bringing him back again because probably there's some bold dreams which his company has. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring on screen Dr. Sean Seah from Angkasa-X Group. Hi, Dr. Sean.
Hello.
Nice to have you
Hi.
back with us again.
Very good. Okay, Sean, let's
Happy
just
to be
jump.
back.
Thank you. Let's just jump into it, right? So, that when I've spoken to you already, I haven't written the story yet. But what strikes me is that you don't have deep domain knowledge in space and satellite technology, and yet you have zoomed in on this as a market opportunity for yourself. Can you tell our I was going to say readers, can you tell our viewers how you came about this opportunity and why did you feel that you could put together the pieces, right, to create a strong company that can take advantage of this opportunity?
All right, very good question. Very tough for the viewers. I know this is the first time I hear this question, so this is a really thinking cap. Started about 2 years ago. That we have an idea to build a space tech business. Okay, again, telecommunications technologies, from 3G, 4G to 5G. We've been asking ourselves, we have 4G, 5G, all the technology. What is 6G all about? Okay, are we talking about total world coverage? Are we talking about 5G speed, latency, lower? What is that all about? Incidentally, some point along that line, our previous United States president says 6G actually is satellites. Okay, so again, started 2 years ago. We've been thinking about if we can have Southeast Asia can build our satellite for connectivity. Okay, that would be cool because there are 30,000 islands in Southeast Asia that you cannot pull fiber, you cannot pull whatever cable. Okay, if there are islands, if there are mountains. So how do we address 350 million population in Southeast Asia that are living in the rural area? They are struggle. Okay, if you don't do anything, in maybe in the next 50 years, they will not get a connection. They will not get connectivity, which to a lot of people in the Western world, internet is necessity. Okay, you need to survive that. So again, all started that. Okay, I myself, I am a computer engineer. Okay, I studied in the US with a computer science master. So back in 1997, when I was hired back from Sun Microsystem, okay, from the US, I used to work for Netscape. So I've been doing all these so-called supercomputers. Sun has all these 64 CPU, Cray computer, that we can power up the entire nation, all kinds of things. Okay, so I was the consultant for Sun. So back then we installed big supercomputers, okay, for the banks, for telcos. So again, those are big servers, big computers. For me, okay, it's never something that we cannot do. Okay, the technology is there. Okay, it's just whether there's application. There's a market. Whether there is a market for it. Okay, we can build all supercomputer, but there's no market. So the same thing applies. Okay, we can build satellite. If satellite, there's no market for it. Miasat has built all the thing. Why do we do it? But we found out there is a big need. Okay, especially during the pandemic. Okay, we never thought how badly the needs are. 7 million population in Malaysia, they do not get internet. Before the pandemic, it's okay. You can go to cyber cafe, you can do all kinds of means. But during the pandemic, really, you can't go out. That means you don't have it. You don't have it. Okay, and there are people climb the mountains, climb the trees, walk the mountains. Okay, just to get connected to sit for exam, education, to acquire knowledge. So again, all this happens. Okay, in the last 18-20 months has accelerated our team to get into this aspiration, I call it, okay, to build our own satellite, Buatan Malaysia, LEO satellite, low Earth orbit satellites. And I always call maybe Elon Musk or Starlink is a comparator. Okay, because they are the one actually roll out, tested, pilot this concept, and again with the success they have in the pilot, therefore started beginning of last year, this year.
Yep.
We decided to put together Angkasa-X, the company. Okay, put in R&D, sign up partnership, sign up USM. Yeah, and we recruited engineers and designed our own satellite, and we're trying to launch it next year.
Wow. So I know you shared with me a data point that Morgan.
Long answer.
No, but were you also motivated by the money? Because I know you shared with me a report said that Morgan Stanley says that by 2040 they estimate satellite, the satellite economy to generate 1 trillion in revenue right now. That even made my eyes pop. So were you how much of this were you motivated by money versus? You were saying that there's 350 million Southeast Asian brothers and sisters, right, who don't have the opportunity to be part of the digital economy because they don't have the connectivity.
There are multifold. Okay, the way to answer this is we started with a concept. We call it technological social inclusion. Again, like any of my ventures in the past. Okay, once you created something has a market demand, the money will come. Okay, again, how do we create the market demand? Okay, if we are bringing Starlink and sell $99 per month in Malaysia, I'm sure the market is not there. Even the technology is there. So we need to start thinking, what is the market demand in Southeast Asia? They are poor, they are rural area, they might not be able to afford all these high prices internet.
Yep.
Okay, so that's one area to do social inclusion. Use technology to do social inclusion to actually bridge the gap of a digital divide, to actually bring so-called helping the rural area community to actually transform their lifestyle, the standard of living. That's one angle. Of course, like any business, when you go fundraising, the investor will ask you, how big is your market? According to Morgan Stanley, publications economy. Okay, the concept, the word is global space economy, is worth over $1 trillion. There's another report came out from another bank, Bank of America. The next decade, this space economy will be more than worth than $1 trillion. Wow. So again, the concept is space tourism, space connectivity, even sending people to Mars. Okay, these are all categorized as space economy. But what Angkasa-X want to do is focusing satellite to provide connectivities, okay, to the
broadband, right? Are you talking about broadband, or you prefer to use the word connectivity and not broadband? Because people think broadband, they think fast. So you're not going to promise that, right?
Actually, there are 4 categories of services that we're providing. Okay, 4 types of services. Of course, let me put it this way: there's a satellite broadband, okay, which is satellite internet services. Okay, we are able to provide a 4G kind of services with a latency about 40 milliseconds. That's for rural rural internet connectivity, and also as a backhaul for the mobile networks. Okay, but the other services we roll out, that includes satellite automatic identification services, AIS. This is for tracking, asset tracking, vessel navigations, the ship, or whatever, ground trucks navigation using satellites. Okay, so we can track asset to the point. Okay, the current tracking is that when your parcel ship from Hong Kong to Klang Valley, then they will tell you when they arrive at Klang Valley, your parcel has arrived in Klang Valley, but you never track where it is at this point in time. Okay, that's AIS, satellite AIS. So we also provide satellite so-called remote sensing. This is Earth observations. So on one of the satellites, a set of satellite with R&D, it will have a camera. Okay, to actually do Earth observation. Okay, talking about disaster management, relief, oil spill, earthquake, disaster. So, and the camera actually to do surveillance on the Southeast Asia region. of course, we are also rolling out a satellite for IoT. Okay, this is for rural farming, for how to use IoT technology using a satellite to roll out these services. So again, we have about four areas of connectivity services using satellites. Using our satellites.
Sean, let me ask you one. Nigesh, because Sean is a bit breaking up, do you want him to switch off the video and just go audio, or you're fine with this, Sean?
I think it's okay for now. I think it's okay for now.
Okay.
Yeah, he may be breaking up.
You were slightly choppy, so I want to make sure that people can hear you smoothly. So, Sean, I understand you are being very ambitious and trying to raise money for all these things you want to do, right? By going for an IPO in the US. So, what gives you the confidence that this is a possibility? And are you looking at a SPAC, or are you looking at a RTO?
We are at the moment preparing our prospectus to file for a US IPO by the end of the year. Okay, so a bit of my background. Okay, I am been founders of a few companies that's been listed over the last 20 years.
Correct.
Again, this is my fourth IPO. First in Singapore and then London. Last 2 years ago in the US. So again, listing the company is not the most challenging. Okay, the most challenging is how do we sustain the share value and also the transactions. So SPAC, we have several offers of SPAC.
Really? Yeah. Wow.
That came to us. Yeah. So we have turned them down. It's because we believe it's to build up the company over time. SPAC will just actually give you some cash, and then you take a shell, and then you start trading. So what our approach is, we build a company from scratch, list it, okay, at the so-called OTC listing. Okay, so OTC listing that will allow us to do more technology acquisitions, and raise some fund. Because launching satellite for LEO, you need to go by. So we do not need to launch all the satellites. So
sorry, Sean. Repeat that because you hung, so people didn't hear you. So again, say when you want to launch satellite in LEO, start from there. Sorry.
Launching a satellites is by stages. You need to launch pilot test satellites, and then you launch again and launch again, like Elon Musk does. So what we do is, first we raise some money, build some test satellites, launch it, roll out pilots. Upon successful of launching, then we go back to the market again. I need to send build and launch another 20 satellites. So you raise money again, you launch, and then you successfully sign up another bunch of customers. So then you do a commercial launch. The commercial launch, you can launch 100 a year. So upon successful, then you launch again. So what we do is in the so-called satellite world, is a capacity planning. How do I do capacity planning? I go to my telco Indonesia. In 2024 and 2026 onwards, how much capacity do you need from my business, from Angkasa-X? Let's just say they need 1 terabit per second. So then we will plan the capacity to provide 1 second for that telco. Comes along, they also need 1 terabit. So we plan accordingly. So every time we will launch our satellite, we already have customers.
Okay, wow, very interesting. So I think what seems to be interesting here is that because of your corporate savviness, I don't know how many Malaysian entrepreneurs have listed companies in 3 countries, and now you're going for your 4th listing, although in the same country in the US, right? So that's quite commendable. So it seems that you have the confidence and you understand how the market works, that you can do it this way, which is quite impressive. And of course, you are doing your equity crowdfunding right now. So all of you should go to, is it on which platform, Sean? Is it on Atta Plus or
on Pitchin?
On Pitchin, right? Go to the Pitchin's Facebook and you can see, and you should listen to Sean's pitch and put in money at this early stage if you want that, right? So very, very impressive. But from what I hear, it's beautiful. Our lead story, Nigesh, was about TPM, right? Trying to introduce the economics of innovation. Sean is all about being innovative, right? So I hope Zulera and TPM and the new Modesty Minister can help you. They should help you, Sean. You should go and pick up your phone and call them, okay? They should answer your phone. And then I think Dr. Helmy also will be quite interested to see how you are playing in the connectivity space, because for him, if you read his article, he talks about the connectivity, being a key part of bringing balanced growth and inclusive growth to Malaysia also. So shall we bring Dr. Helmy back on?
Let's bring him on.
Okay. If I may, Karam, let me add another point. Okay, we've been working quite closely with MCMC. Okay, for a country to launch satellite into the space, you need to first get the orbits.
Regulatory.
Okay, Malaysia has to secure the orbit, the Earth orbits, and also a spectrum to communicate the satellites. So Angkasa-X has successfully become a member of ITU last month with the help with the referral and endorsement from KKMM MCMC. So we are Angkasa-X is the one of the 3 companies in Malaysia, okay, with the ITU or a radio communication so-called membership that will enable us to file for the orbits that we can send our satellite and the spectrum that we can use. So that's quite an accomplishment for us, So thanks to our team as well.
Orbit and spectrum, cool. Okay, good. Right. So of course, spectrum, you don't have to worry because you're so high up. You're not going to be, interfering with anyone's spectrum, right?
but among the ITU members, they have to approve the spectrum that we use.
Yeah,
there are thousands of satellites up there.
Correct. Fair point. So, but it's great that you're trying to do something very, in a very promising market, right? And how you're trying to build the financial strength to build the market, credibility, and then get market traction and go back to the market again. A very unique play you're doing, but you've had enough experience. Very few people have had the experience you have. Otherwise, they cannot imagine to do this. They'll be thinking, here's my business plan. I'm going to go and see all the VCs in town. If I can raise money, great. I issue my press release to DNA. If I cannot meet, I go back and do something else. So very interesting. So, but this is your 2 decades of business experience, right? Coming together to try to create a opportunity, to grab an opportunity you see in the market. Very good. So, Helmy, you would not have known of what Dr. Sean is trying to do, right, with his Angkasa-X. Are you excited with the possibilities you hear of, at least helping to bridge this connectivity infrastructure?
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose this is me thinking of it in a very simplistic way, but when you're way up there, it's easier to target the areas that are not covered by things that are down on the ground, right? In a very simplistic way.
Correct.
But I suppose the challenge, and I don't know the intricacies of it, is how to make it profitable or viable. Because I think sometimes it's these areas that perhaps were not covered in the first place because there wasn't a market or there wasn't appropriate remuneration. So I suppose that's the kind of thing that would be interesting to see how, you have access, you have the technology, how do you make it sustainable?
Yeah. And Sean is targeting the ASEAN market at 350. It's not the Malaysian market. So that makes it a bit more appealing. And I think you should keep mentioning there are 60,000 islands in Southeast Asia, because everybody can probably name 3, Langkawi, Phuket, and Bali, right?
Bali, yes.
Indonesia has about 17,000.
17. Okay, wow. And Philippines has got 20 over 1,000. People think Indonesia has more. Philippines has more, Anyway, Nigesh, do you want to have a last question for them before we...
I kind of do, but it's back to that connectivity thing that we were speaking about. Like when Dr. Sean was talking about it, I kind of thought about that story that ran about this girl in, was it Sabah, Sarawak, who had to go climb up a tree and do her tests because she couldn't get connectivity. And because of where I am and what I do right now, it is the case of you can design any great solution, app solution, digital solution, whatever you want to call it. But if the core connectivity capability is not there, there's no point. You're not reaching everybody. And we assume that it's an ASEAN problem, but go to the States. There's actually places around the States that don't have connectivity as well, because exactly what Dr. Helmy said, that business infrastructure viability question doesn't connect. So what can we do? So this could possibly be something. But I want to direct something towards Dr. Helmy here. And this actually came from Roslan Bakri Zakaria, PhD. So can we have it on screen? It's a very long question. But I think
Doctor, we got two doctors on the show and a doctor asking us a PhD, just
Exactly.
like Dr. Sean. Okay.
unfortunately, we have to flash this for all and take this down. I'm going to try to summarize this question. So it's basically half frustration, half trying to understand it.
Yeah.
What a general person can do, and the frustration is because we've been talking about digital Malaysia, think tanks, consultants, all these things we've been talking about, and yes, on this show as well, we've had so many coming talking about these kind of things. But I guess what Ruslan is trying to get at here is, what can we do? What can we exactly do right here, right now? What can we do to get things done? And especially when it comes to the general community and also the general business community, to actually drive towards what you were mentioning, so that we don't get left behind, driving the government, driving the policies. What can be done?
So I suppose the question really is, how do we make the government work faster?
In a way, yes. In a way, how we as the people and small industries can make the government work faster.
Yeah, so I agree in that sometimes, talk in webinars for the sake of it, I think, is pointless. And I do feel that, there is when it comes to engagement, there has to be a process and there has to be a goal there. Now, going back to the government, for example, one good thing in terms of continuity is we still have Topa, for example, in the same position, and he's he's overseeing some of these changes. And alongside SERI, we've had the opportunity to actually do some engagement work with industry, with government agencies. So, for example, we recently had a session on introducing the DIO, the Digital Investment Office, which was as a consequence of feedback from industry about the difficulty in actually figuring out who do they speak to when it comes to investment. So that, for example, is one outcome that one can, in a way, think of it in a very positive way as a consequence of engagement. I think the frustration is most engagements go nowhere. And it is also very personality driven. So if, let's say, it wasn't Topa there, it was some other minister, you may have very different outcomes. And for me, I don't have a magic answer, I'm afraid. I don't have an answer for this. But my belief is that we cannot stop engaging and we cannot stop forcing or voicing the issue. And we all have our strengths. So I, for example, I'm not a technical guy, but what I can do is I can advocate for this in a very practical, in a very feasible way for people on the ground. Whereas the tech guys, they can make that conversation about what is needed technically, which government agencies they need to deal with. Somebody else needs to talk about the education of our students. Somebody else needs to talk about the public service being upskilled and reskilled for a digital age. But that conversation just has to keep going. And I do feel that, if you want to look at the instability over the past 2-3 years, we can be very nihilistic. We can be very negative in how these things are. But on the plus side, we now have a situation where no one person has got a stranglehold of the nation, which means we can push for things. We can advocate for things. We can tell, hey, if you don't take this up and you don't do this, I ain't going to vote for you next time around. And I know you want to stay in power. So we have voices that matter. And I think it's the biggest challenge at this point in time, I think, is most of us are fed up. Most of us are like, nothing is changing, nothing is happening, nothing is moving. And I think every so often we need to recharge ourselves, like our phones, our batteries, and then move forward and engage. And I don't want us to give up on that. That's my hope. And that's what I feel we should continue doing. Very
good. Well said. And the two of you are an example, right? Sean has been so steeped in the ecosystem, yet he's being a disruptor now. He has recharged himself. He's given himself an exciting target and objective, and he's doing it from Malaysia. He could have launched it from out of Singapore. Headquarters is coming in Singapore, squarely in Malaysia. He may be a bit crazy or stupid to do that. I don't know, but he's doing it from here.
And Hold on. I think Dr. Sean has something.
I'm done with it. I just wanted to credit him for being crazy.
Elon Musk is a madman, so we are madmen. Okay, we put monies into business that we need to develop. My point is, I think like Dr. Helmy say, we need to lead the talk. Okay, a lot, we can say the instability of the government is nothing we can do about it, except from the next election. But while this is happening, okay, we can lead the talk. That means while the government is not doing anything, but we can do something. So like I say, even government has a policy to do remote sensing startup by 2025, but there's no money, there's no allocations. That's why the industry decided to take the lead, okay, find their own money, do their own thing. Well, we have MCMC. Now we're working with them. We are working with MIDA. We're working with MDEC. The rest of the government agency will come in because, again, it's better than we lead the talk, show them what we can do. Eventually, the government will support us eventually. So again, I think my deep believer is to do it first without asking what the government can do for me.
Right. And on that note, I think we got to bring the show to a close because on that note, I want to kind of give everyone this picture. I remember seeing this graphics in the mind of me. I cannot remember where the source is, but the graphics showed the adoption of new things, right? Technology is always ahead and human beings create the technology. What businesses adopted next, and only last comes policy and government. So the driving comes from people, which then drives businesses, which then drives the government. So that on that note, so for everybody out there who's hearing, don't give up. Don't give up. The optimism is not to just say that, let's see how they're doing. The optimism is for you to actually do something so that you move those people who are in power to also do something. So on that note, thank you, everybody.
Please check Angkasa-X on pitching and go and invest in Sean's crazy dream also.
Exactly. And
Malaysia dream, Malaysia boleh.
Yeah.
Right. And not only that, go read. I really cannot stress this enough. Go read that article from Dr. Helmy at Digital News Asia. It's actually really a great read. And also, it may also spark some things in your mind on what you could do. You could do on those 5 points that was mentioned. All right. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining the show. Thank you for the comments that came from everybody. And also, I just want to mention that next week, for some of you who know, we had Necole and Leaderonomics Digital. We actually did a full week last month surrounding tech, and that was around businesses. But next week, we're going to do something. And this one is surrounding people from different age groups. We're going to start with parents and their kids on how they can leverage on technology to actually educate. And what are the best methods to educate? And that's going to be with Alina Amir from Arus Academy. I'll be speaking to Professor Dr. Pradip Nair from Taylor's University on how those who are entering career can prepare themselves for their future careers. And finally, we're going to be talking to Dr. Nora Manaf. And Sashi is going to be talking to Dr. Nora Manaf. She's been an advocate of changing the way we look at how we work. Work means also developing your people and developing everybody there. And she's been talking about this since years ago. So it's really going to be a good week to talk about how we, and this is actually the 5th point on Dr. Helmy's right up there, on the skills development. How can we get ourselves developed and ready for the future? So check out all the shows next week. The first one is actually tomorrow itself.
Actually, first one is happening tomorrow. Alina
Yes, correct. The first one is happening tomorrow, and that will be actually tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. So do join the stream. Dr. Sean, you wanted to say something?
If I may, we are running a forum we're pitching next Wednesday, 8 p.m.
Yep.
It's about the space economy as well. So we will have the DG, Director General of MISA, Malaysia Space Agency, will be joining us, and also the Vice Chancellor of USM and the Dean of Aerospace Faculty from USM as well. So do come to our website. Hope to see you there.
All right. Thanks for that. Thanks for that plug. So remember, if you want to know more, you want to understand, you want to pitch in on what Angkasa-X is going to do join that forum. So on that note, we got to all say bye-bye right now. Thank you so much for joining the show. Dr. Helmy, Dr. Sean, Karam, and everybody out there who is watching the show. This is Nigesh. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend. And I know since the state is open right now, don't be too in a rush to go out. Still, be safe, get vaccinated, have your mask on when you go out. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.